look at that, and when that industry goes down, it's not just that industry, and that's what
No.
people need to start to understand.
It
Is
affects all industries.
it does. It affects the gas
Yeah.
attendants, the hotel rooms where vendors come in, the vendors that come in and support these sawmills and these processors.
Welcome to episode 38 of the Crownsman Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Downey. Beside me is Gowdy Molina, our
Good morning.
co-host. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Your throat's all cleared up? Last episode you were...
I was still a little, but I think I'm good now. I think we're good.
I think that might have got passed on to our guests, so now.
It's we're coming
It's
into
that season, yeah.
Yeah. it's-
We've got a very exciting lineup. We today on the show we have David. Is it Dave or David?
Either one.
Either one. Okay. Dave R. Miles. He is the president of Innovative Magnet. Wow, Jared. Innovative Magnetic Technologies. I see why you abbreviate IMT.
IMT. I betcha.
And we've had the last few shows we've had, which are absolutely amazing. We have organizations. We got lobbyist groups on. And now coming up, we have some of the I think Ritchie Brothers is coming on and things like that. So it's really an exciting time. But I think you know from me, I like the more on the ground companies. And IMT is the manufacturer of magnetic solutions. Anything from belt magnetics in across all industries, from agriculture, mining, energy. So I'll let David get into all that. I'm sort of butchering their intro, so I'll let David fix what I'm doing. But it's a company out of Kelowna. They are the manufacturers, industrial magnetic equipment. So it's very cool stuff.
Yeah.
I like it. Before we go any further, we're going to do our sponsors, and then we'll get into the interview.
Alrighty. So we'll thank all of our sponsors, and we'll start off with Formation Ag. If you're a large-scale CBD hemp farmer, you have a choice when it comes to harvesting your expensive hemp crop. You can try to update existing machinery to keep it from wrapping on every nut bearing and auger, not to mention destroying the trichomes. Or you can buy equipment that was specifically engineered to handle all cultivars of CBD hemp while maintaining the integrity of your crop. Clean-cut harvesters from Formation Ag are designed from the ground up to help you get the most of your CBD crop. You can see them at formationag.com or call the number below. Formation Ag, tomorrow's large-scale hemp solutions today. Also, Savanaugh Equipment. If you need anything from pumps to conveyors to electrical, go to the leader in used equipment, Savanaugh Equipment. And you can visit them at savanaughEquipment.com, where you will find more equipment every day.
Okay,
right.
Thank you. Well, sorry for butchering your company's intro. I'll let you fix it now.
No worries. You did a fine job.
What is IMT doing?
Okay, so we're more than just a manufacturer. We also design. Our niche that separates us a bit from our competitors is the ability to build quickly and build to what our clients' expectations are and what their applications are. So in other words, we make it an easy, simple fix. That's kind of where we're at. And then we also have the Me Too type products where we manufacture like the suspended plate magnets, the cross-belt separators, drum separators across a whole broad industrial ranging from sawmills, like wood processing, biomass recycling. We get into mineral processing. And then, of course, we try to expand our territory too. So there's a lot of industrial magnets being sold in Kelowna, so we have to look outside of that area.
Yeah. So are you selling all over the world? North America, is that your primary market? Or
Yeah. And again, it's a niche market, so it's not a high volume market. So we work with various companies throughout the globe. Some of our projects have gone as far away as Madagascar, Australia. We've done some work in Chile. And that's something that we're looking at expanding into further.
Yeah. You said about with manufacturing, and there's so many different sort of layers of the manufacturing. You know, a car company is bringing in pieces, thousands of suppliers are coming in, and they're putting on the nuts and bolts to the car together, and then it sort of breaks down from there. How much of the equipment do you source it from suppliers, and then are you putting it together, or are you actually, like, what's the whole process? Are you bringing in 100 different pieces, or are you building some of like the steel and
Yeah.
stuff like that, like bending the steel and
So-
those kind of things?
Yeah, so IMT basically is comprised of steel fabrication,
Right.
machine shop, assembly area. We have our own in-house paint, so we try to do as much as we can in-house. When we started the business, we wanted to look at trying to bring in components to keep our overhead down and to not get involved in too much capital-heavy equipment, such as CNC jet machines
Right.
and plasmas and things like that. But in theory, it works very well. But the reality is being a smaller business, when we need to get something, we get pushed to the back. For example, Western Star, when they were around in Kelowna, they're the big dog. They're the guys, and all of the smaller businesses and industries around there is really support into that industry, and we want to get something out of them. Well, we get pushed back, so now we're looking at 4-6 week delivery times, and that doesn't work for our customers. So what has happened is we've slowly accumulated that capital equipment we didn't want to get into, but it's actually worked out way better. We've been able to control our quality control a lot better. It's given us a lot more flexibility in designing the equipment.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, and so IMT does that. Like, a lot of people think of magnets as just a magnet, but it isn't. When you get into the core of the magnet, I mean, you can have close proximity magnets. So you can have a magnet that doesn't have any reach out, so until you actually put it on a piece of plate. Then you can have reach out magnets, which is the type of magnet you'd see in separation, the type of magnet you'd see suspended above a conveyor belt, picking up bucket teeth and things like that. So what we do is we try to take the magnetic force or the field, and we try to focus it into a working piece of equipment. So if the customer wants to pick up a 100-pound bucket tooth, we design a magnet to do that. And then the sizing and the configurations, and some places, you can't put a magnet in this area, so we have to look at other applications, and so we look at other different types of pieces of equipment. So, it's a continuum. We're just continually growing our manufacturing capability and design capabilities.
Yeah, so and the fabricating was actually the word I was looking for. But you're actually taking that magnet and all the steel components and everything that's holding the frame in. You're actually manufacturing that.
Yeah. We manufacture. Yeah, we are one of our most recent acquisitions is a 5-foot by 10-foot water jet multi-axis, so we can do countersunk holes and bevels on steel. We can cut steel up to 6-7 inches thick, and with precision. Like, it's amazing. The technology that is available right now is it's mind blowing.
And so, what is it called?
It's called a water jet machine, a water jet table, and it uses high pressure water, about 60,000 psi, and it incorporates an abrasive. In this particular case, it's garnet sand, and the garnet sand gets injected into the water, and it goes down, and then it just cuts out. And so our design personnel, they put their designs together and put it into AutoCAD or into a 3D model. It gets put down there, and then it just cuts out the pieces that we need.
And that's pretty recent that you put that in?
Yeah, I would say it's coming on a year now since we put it in.
Yeah. So is that when you order a piece of equipment like that? I know I'm going down the manufacturing,
Yeah,
but
it's okay.
it's been a while since we've had a manufacturer in here, so I'm I'm getting caught up.
Yeah.
So all those capabilities you have, how would you do a similar thing beforehand?
Well, we used to use plasma. So plasma is it's a less costly piece of equipment, but the challenges that we were having is that it wasn't as precise, and then you end up with let's call it slag, but it's plasma that is on the outside. So now you have to take it, and there's multiple steps and processes in taking it where you take it off the table, like you put it in the table, it gets cut out. Now you take it, now you got to grind off the stuff, and then you have to go to the machine shop. Then you turn it down to the tolerances that you need. The water jet's so precise that we can do 1/8 holes in 3/4 inch plate, pull it right off, and tap it. So we don't even need to into board or anything. It's amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about some of these projects that you've worked on. You mentioned Madagascar. I think we actually have pictures of one of those, right? I think you sent pictures to the
Yeah,
Matic.
yeah, you bet.
Bring that up, Gowdy. And so, is this when you doing something like that? Do they find you? Like, how do you get a company from Madagascar to?
Well, it's an interest. We worked with a mineral processor way back in Canada, and they were using some standardized bucket elevators. They were using bucket elevators to move their materials. And we came along and we said, there's a better way, because in this particular plant, they were moving nickel and cobalt. They're suspected carcinogens and bucket elevators that can generate dust.
Right.
It's a noisy piece of equipment, high maintenance. There's a whole bunch of downsides. So we went and introduced them to the concept of using magnetics. Of course, this only works on ferrous materials.
Right.
So we talked to them and said, there's a better way. And they said, well, what is this? And they kind of looked at it. And we worked with a gentleman who was what I would consider an innovator. And he looked at it and he said, that's interesting. He says, let's build one, a 7-footer. So we built this little 7-foot conveyor, and it worked brilliantly. And then we went up to a 15-foot conveyor. And the confidence built with the client. And from there, we went to a 35-foot, which was a main piece of equipment moving most of their materials, which was nickel briquettes. And as the story goes, and it's actually a bit of a funny story, because when we commissioned the piece of equipment, there was a gentleman there who he wasn't that sold on it, but it was put in place, and it was running, and it was running brilliantly, and everybody was like, wow, this is really cool. And the fellow says, well, let's really see what this thing will handle in full production. And so he gets on the radio and tells the guy comes back and says, we are in full production. And he's just like, wow, okay, this is pretty neat. So then what happened is, apparently some people came through, a board of directors or some engineers who were involved in a larger project in Madagascar. And from the story I was told, they came in and they just sat there for 20 minutes watching this vertical magnetic conveyor go. And when they said, we want this in Madagascar. And then that's how we kind of got into it. So from there, it went into engineering contacted the engineering firm who was involved in that, contacted us, and then we just worked side by side with them, came up with the appropriate design and the capacity to be able to handle what they wanted. And basically went from there.
So this started with a Canadian, like basically a smaller operation, and then
I wouldn't call it a smaller operation, a Canadian operation.
Canadian operation,
yeah.
And then that basically went into that ended up leading to the Madagascar. Is this this picture that we're brought in? Is this the Madagascar one?
No, this is the head sections of the conveyors. I believe there were 6 conveyors that were sent over there. This is during the construction and fabrication of the head sections.
Do we have a picture of the? Can we look at the picture of it in operation? I wanted to see that.
Yes, that one there.
This one right
Yeah,
here.
you betcha. Thanks, Gabby.
So is this going? Is that
I know.
is that going straight up?
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It kind of messes with your head, doesn't it? Yeah.
An illusion.
Yeah. So basically, the conveyor actually takes up most probably less room than what this desk is right here.
Okay.
And then it goes straight up, so it's just like a tower. And so this one here, I believe, is around 60 vertical feet. Yeah. Okay. So the nickel briquettes, they come along and they adhere to the magnet.
So they've already been processed and everything.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah. So it comes along and then it's conveyed straight up. It goes over a round radius section, and then through decreasing magnetic field, and then it continues on and then discharges. So what the advantage, which I kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, is you don't have any dust because the magnet holds all the dust, right? So there's no dust. These briquettes are very brittle, so there's no impact from a bucket being dropped together.
Right.
And it just goes up and just discharges and smooth.
So is the magnet like, where are they actually positioned, or are they along the side?
And they're behind the belt.
Behind the belt.
Behind the
okay.
belt.
All
Yeah.
six,
Making
all
the
60 feet.
belts.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So.
yeah. So and the material just goes straight up. Again, this is a very niche industry. I mean, For this particular application, there may only be 4 or 5 plants on the planet that could use it, right?
Right.
So it's an interesting project. Yeah, it's really good.
Does that when you do those types of projects, though, does it? Well, one led to another, right? Does that lead to more? Do you not maybe of that, but then does it kind of showcases that capability to vary?
Yeah, and I think any industry or any business that starts off, you always start off small, and as you grow, credibility is something that is very challenging to get, especially in the heavy industrial market. I mean, you're playing with things that are very expensive.
Right.
Engineers really want to see some background of what you've done and where you want to go, and that's one of the challenges I think of industrial manufacturing.
Yeah. What I want to circle back to some of what you do offer, though, just so we kind of get, and we'll put links to the website and everything, so people, the audience watching here can sort of check it out. But what's sort of the range? First, by equipment that you, because there's so many magnets are. Most people are obviously think of magnets. Most people watching the show are going to know of industrial magnets from across the industries. But what are sort of the main types that you're working with?
I'm going to go back just a little bit. So there's basically 2 reasons you use industrial magnets. Okay, basically for product purity. So if you you don't want to have a nut or a bolt in your cornflakes, right? So you use magnetic separation to purify product. You don't want so just take things out. Gold processors.
Right.
They don't want magnetite in with the gold, so they want to extract it because of the specific gravity separation systems they use. And then the other thing you can use is used in protecting the equipment, right?
Right.
So now you don't want that bucket tooth going into your crusher and your grinders and things like that. So the equipment that we primarily get involved in are suspended plate magnets, which are magnets that are suspended above the conveyor belt. And then there's also the manual clean. And then there's the crossbelt separator, which is a continuous cleaning system. And then there's the newly developed IMT AMS system, the actuated maintenance system that we've developed.
I have a picture of that one too, actually.
Yeah.
Bring that up, please, Scotty.
So while you're doing that, so then we get into drum separation, and then vibratory separation for vibratory feeders and conveyors, plate separators. There's a multitude of various solutions that we have to offer to various industrial processes.
Yeah, the one that I've never quite. I want to go back to this new one that you've got out, but I think the drum separator. I've never quite understood how the drum magnet.
Yeah, it's
I've
also
never-
it's kind of like the vertical magnetic
I've
conveyor.
I've actually taken them out of mines and stuff like that, and I've dealt with them, organized them in yards and all that sort of stuff. But I've never quite understood how they're working. Are they fed generally through a liquid? Like, is there a liquid mix?
Well, drum separators can come in wet or dry applications. The application being that your background's from Savinaw would be a wet drum separation systems. Systems that are utilized
Hence
in
the
the coal mines, and they use that for a part of their flotation or heavy media separation. It's called. So basically, what it is it comprises of a magnetic core, permanent magnetic core, that is, say, 120 degree radius, so it doesn't go all the way around. And then there's a steel shell that goes around it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Now that steel shell rotates.
Right.
Okay. So the material is fed through there, goes down into and underneath the magnet. When the magnet grabs it up to the steel shell. Okay. So being it's only 120 degree radius, it doesn't go all the way around. What happens is that drum, as it rotates around, it gets to the end where the magnet is, and it builds up, and then the stuff just starts falling off. The stuff being magnetite or the magnetic fraction you're looking to extract. So that so as it comes up, it comes to this point and then just starts falling off. And that's how the drum separators work.
That's what I never understood about.
Yeah,
You know how many times I've looked at those things. And it's one of those things you don't. I have to ask dumb questions on the show, but
it's not a dumb.
Well, I never wanted to ask.
Not a dumb question. That's a very common question.
Yeah, because when I looked at it, because I've seen these, and sometimes they line them up. There's multiples, and I'm thinking, so how do they? And I've seen them kind of have scrapers. Some of them on. It's like that's not enough.
Yeah,
but
no, it's water, and that's a good observation. Yeah, but that's because the magnetic field stops, and it'll usually stop at the horizontal line, like at the widest part of the drum. And it falls off. And some operations will run sprayers just to help clean it off.
Just to clean it off, yeah.
But there's some inherent issues and challenges with that separation. It's been around for 50, 60, maybe even longer.
Yeah.
That type of separation. So,
But we got the new one up here. So what is this one? This is sort of a different looking. So what did you call this?
that we call it the actuated maintenance system. We had to come up with a name and it kind of suits it. So AMS, right?
Yeah.
So what it is it's a permanent magnet, and the challenge that you have with permanent magnets is that they're permanent. You can't clean them off, and if they're extremely powerful, these magnets. And if you end up having a steel plate that gets stuck to the bottom, now you have to somehow effectively, safely remove the trap metal from the faceplate. So people have placed these magnets on stainless steel, and then they use actuators and move them up and out. So what we've done is we've kind of combined a whole bunch of things. We've combined the stand, an adjustable stand, so now we can adjust it for the different burden depths, right?
Right.
And then we've added a DC winch system with solar power charging, so it keeps the battery topped up all the time. And for cleaning. So now what happens is the magnet, when it's sitting there and it gets loaded up, there's a steel plate, it raises up like this and the material falls off.
Oh.
Okay.
And that's cleaning.
Yeah. So being a permanent magnet, that's one of the upsides of buying it, is permanent, no power required. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to keep on with that. So instead of running hydraulic lines or power lines to this particular system, we've come up with a solar charge or kinetic energy. You see the roller on the bottom. So the rotational energy that is generated from that goes into a trickle charge, if you will, and keeps the battery topped up.
Kind of like the hybrid cars.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So you got the conveyor belt running anyway. So we instead of running a power line, we just take the
Oh,
power.
that's
Yeah.
clever.
So
And-
and there's a remote switch, and and the winch just lifts it up, dumps the material off, and then goes back down. On our website, there's a couple videos that kind of show it in demonstration.
Is that now that's fully in market now? right?
Yes. Yeah. We got issued our patents on that. It was probably about 8-9 months ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does that something designing like that? Is that sort of going back to the Madagascar thing where there's a need and so you provide it and then go, hey, other people are going to want it, or do you just from doing multiple projects, do you develop it just from scratch?
I think there's a bunch of different reasons that people innovate and come up with new ideas. One of them is for the innovation itself and saying, hey, how do we separate or segregate us from our competition?
Right.
You know, we don't want to be just a Me Too company. Like, here's a magnet, you know, which one's cheaper? We want to value add our products, and that's kind of what Innovative Magnetics is all about. So and then we look at this, and from talking to the customers and seeing, you know, installation, you know, how are they going to draw power in there? How are they going to be able to clean this? And, you know, you could say, well, why don't they just buy a crossbelt separator? It's a continuous cleaning system. Well, this would be something that you couldn't really justify a crossbelt separator in the sense that it's continually cleaning, but for what? Once in a while, you'll pick up a bucket tooth or a piece of plate.
Right. Yeah.
You know, instead of having this thing running. Because a crossbelt separator is another piece of equipment that you need to maintain.
Yeah.
It has
yeah.
moving parts.
Moving parts
You
and
have
yeah.
bearings and drives and belts. So with this system here, it's a simple, easy way. We work with a distributor down in the deep south, and they told us, because we were curious, how long did it take for this to get installed? 3 hours. By the time they came to security, installed, had it up and running, and left at security, it was 3 hours. That's
Wow.
pretty impressive.
That's
That
pretty
is,
impressive.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
because it's using its own, it's coming in with its own frame and everything,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to get into. We talked about a couple of the different, but what do you think the most popular products that you work with? I think you sent us a couple pictures of those, where we have a couple of them as well. In a sort of a day-to-day basis, you know, obviously we don't want to get into your numbers and how many
Yeah.
units you ship a day or anything,
Yeah.
but on an annual basis, what is the majority, like maybe your top 2 products that you're providing?
Top 2 would be our suspended magnets, which would be the cross belt or the suspended plate magnet.
Yeah.
The other would be drum separation. Yeah, where we get into drum separation. And a close third to that would be plate separation.
Will be played.
Yeah, and that's the magnets that sit inside the chutes.
That I don't think we have a picture of those, right?
I don't think I did send a
what
picture.
what they sit in? What do you mean they sit inside the
Oh,
chutes?
actually, there is a picture. It's the picture of the chutes that are sitting in front of our building.
Yeah. I think it's good
Oh.
to with some of the interviews we do, we don't
That one.
need as
These
many
ones.
Yeah.
many pictures, but with this, I think a lot of magnets are one of those things that everybody in the world has seen these industrial magnets, but just driving by, you see them on plants as you drive by them,
Yeah.
but most people just wouldn't pick up on even what they are.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting to sort of next time you drive by, people will actually be able to pick one out.
Yeah.
So what is this set up?
So this setup here, this was going into a pellet plant. So of course pellets, they're taking wood waste. Wood waste is typically can be very contaminated with trap metal because people consider it waste, so things get thrown into it. So in this particular case, we're taking out, this goes before a hammer mill, we're taking out any trap metal before it goes in there.
Oh,
Obviously,
I see.
you got a hammer mill, this thing's grinding away and you don't want any metal to go in
Yeah.
there. So the plate separator sits in there and the material flows over the phase. So you don't need to reach out. And the plate separation is a very effective way of doing the separation in that you're not having to fight gravity. Material's open and it's flowing down onto the magnet, so you don't have to use the magnetic field and forces to be able to reach out and grab it. It's right there. And
Right.
so it's a very effective system. And this particular system here, we built all the shooting and the hull frames and everything. And yeah.
I was curious about that. How often do you end up building out from the magnet? Have you got a bug flying? I saw that bug this morning.
I didn't
Really?
even
And I
notice it.
decided not to. I let Butter chase it around rather than killing it.
And now it's flying around.
And now it's coming back. Thanks a lot. But how often are you building out? Like, so you take a magnet and you build it to specifications, and now these chutes. How often do you get into that?
It doesn't happen that often. It's something that we're starting to promote a little bit more. But a lot of the times, where we get involved in, say, a capital project where they're building a facility, engineering will go in there and they'll have a fabricator go build it, and then we supply the component that goes into that. Retrofit systems, that's where we can get involved and be able to build a magnet with a frame, made up the flanges, like we did a project down in the south, a whole series of plate separators and grate separators that we were able to retrofit into their existing system. So we met their flange, the bolt holes, and all that. So they just slide it right in, bolt it up, and yeah. So, but that's something that we are looking at promoting more and more.
I'm curious, and again, going back to that, people, well, even our company, right? We sometimes get tack on things and that. And when you're doing that type of thing, like you build these chutes, and of course, it's not what you're doing every day. Just from a business operational standpoint, does your margins get lower because it takes a little longer than you thought it was going to? Like, is that if you were consulting with somebody and they're growing their business, how much would you say stay within what you do, or are these good opportunities when you end up doing these types of things?
I think it's from IMT's perspective, it's a good opportunity where we go back to value add. It is not our forte. We're not going to go out there and we're not going to build, non-magnetic conveyors. We're not going to go out and build, but support equipment that our equipment goes on. That can be a value add to the customer. Instead of having somebody else building it, we can build it, have it ready to go.
Right.
For example, making sure that you put in the right stainless steel and it has the right stainless steel in the right spots and that type of thing. Otherwise, we have to go in and we have to specify to the engineer sometimes, hey, this is what you're going to have to watch for here. And
Right.
sometimes, mild steel fabrication is different than stainless steel fabrication. The welding is different. Where we work with mild steel and stainless steel all the time. So to us, we look at it not as so much of a profit-making type adventure. It is just a value add, just something to bring. And why would we want to deal with IMT? Well, IMT can do this over and above just supplying you a magnet off the shelf.
Right. Yeah. We should let's take a quick break for some sponsors, and
Yep.
then we're going to get a little bit more into your professional career, the industry on a whole. So lots of good stuff. So don't go away and listen to the sponsors. They paid to be on here.
Yes.
10,000 people just went, yeah, screw you.
Okay, we've got Streamline. They offer a complete package of fleet management solutions with 3 incredible products. NaviStream, their onboard intelligence and telematics system. NaviLink, their vehicle automation and IoT platform. And Dagama, their dynamic transportation management system. And you can visit them at stti.com for the Streamline advantage. We've also got Data Cloud. Does it feel like you're drilling and blasting blind? Could your MWD measurements be better? The Data Cloud platform shows your lithology changes in real time for better blasting fragmentation profiles. Check out their IoT sensors and cloud computing platforms at datacloud.com and learn how you can know your rock today. And we've also got Formation Ag. There are 25,000 uses for the industrial hemp plant, and most of those come from the hurd and the fiber. Textiles, rope, paper, hempcrete, animal bedding, plastics, and composite material are just a few. But before any of those can be made, the hemp stalks have to be decorticated. The process of separating the fiber from the hurd. The FiberTrack 660 decorticator from Formation Ag products produces high quality first mill fiber and hurd at a rate of up to a ton per hour. And you can see it today at formationag.com or call the number below. Formation Ag, Formation Ag, tomorrow's large scale hemp solutions today.
Okay.
Good.
Now it's your section,
Yes.
Gowdy.
Yay, it's my turn. Okay, I would kind of want to talk about you and where you started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This could be a long story.
We've got
We've got
time.
time. So I used to run. My background was right from working the oil patch, service rigs, oil field construction. When I first left school, I was stacking hay bales and building, stuff for agriculture industry. I decided to move to Canada because the company I was working for in southern Alberta had went into receivership. So I moved out to Kelowna and came out here and then worked in some landscaping. I was running a Bobcat and driving truck and hit the ripe age of 24. And at that age, it was like, oh man, I gotta make get a real life going on here instead of just this seasonal work. So I applied for a shipping receiver job at an industrial plastics company. Knew nothing about it, but it was an interesting job. And from there, I was just really got into heavy industry. Within 3 months, the company I was working for had me on the road in southeastern British Columbia, calling on the sawmills and the pulp mills and the mines. And I thought it was a great job. Driving around, expense account, company car, 24 years old, yay.
That's the dream.
Yeah, it is, and it was really good. I mean, the downside is, I was on the road for 3 out of 4 weeks, and back then I was with I had met my wife the first week I'd moved to Kelowna, so, it was good, and it worked out really well. Across the street from where the company was working for, opened up a small magnetics company. They had magnetic sweepers and these small little magnetic devices. And at that time, I was introduced to rare earth magnets. I don't know if you guys ever played with any rare earth magnets.
No.
They're crazy. They're really, really strong. Like, watch your finger stuff. So I just thought, wow, it would be amazing to be able to take all these high-tech plastics and be able to combine them with these high-tech magnetics, and kind of the products would be just amazing to get into. So I had that in the back of my head, and I ended up calling onto a mine, and the gentleman I was working with at the mine, he says, hey, you talk about these magnets and stuff. He says, can you do something like this? So he had suggested some stuff. So we worked up and came up with a concept for a ball mill liner, magnetic ball mill liner. This was a company that was prior to IMT. So we started developing a ball mill liner. We registered intellectual property. I had a partner at that particular time. And we started doing that. So we had a polyurethane processing plant as we grew up, as we moved forward. But we also came out with magnetic patches. So a quick temporary magnetic Band-Aid, if you will, for blow lines and chutes and hoppers. And they get a hole in there, just stick it on, and they keep it running until they shut down, and they pull it off, and then they can weld it, which most plants just left them on, and so they became a permanent fix. But that was what it was. And magnetic wear plate fasteners. So the company was, it had flourished and it had grown. And then my partner and I ended up basically separating. The assets and everything were all sold off, and I basically had to start all over again. So, and that's when I started IMT in 2008 and got right back into the separation systems. And 2008 was kind of a rough time to start a business.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
But at that particular time, that's when we had landed the Madagascar project. So that kind of got us through that challenging time. And then from there, yeah, we just kind of grew up and went from there.
Wow, that's a great story, actually. Now, with the various jobs you've done, or in the industry, because it's all industrial. What is one thing that you can say has been the biggest challenge?
Getting started. I think getting started, and we had had a discussion about this earlier. Getting started and taking the risk, going out there and putting. I mean, basically, we put our home on the line when we start. When you start that, you have to do that. You have to believe in yourself and believe in what you're doing. I think that was the biggest challenge to do that, because it's scary. It's a very scary thing, a scary thought to be able to do that, and then to implement your plan and get it going. And that's on the company and getting the business side. Is that what
No,
we're
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about?
yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's I think would be the most challenging thing. Yeah.
Have you seen the industry change a lot?
Yeah, and the more it changes, the more it kind of stays the same. It's the same thing. It's all about supply and demand. Like sawmills were a big thing, like the wood processing industry in British Columbia. I kind of grew up in that. That was our number one industry. But things have changed, and other industries are starting to pick up some of that, and we start looking at other areas. But it has changed, and it's really, it's interesting. But it's the evolution of us and our society. But like, I take a look at some of the towns that used to be, thriving little communities and this and that, and now they're basically ghost towns. And you drive through there, and it kind of, when you drive through and you used to see the sawmill and the people and the support and all of that. Like, for every one person, there's like 7 or 8 other people that are affected by that one person.
Yeah.
Right,
That loses their job for whatever reason, whether it's acquisition by a larger company or lack of wood or whatever it is, right? Yeah, so yeah, it's been interesting, but with our business being that it's such a niche business, we have to go after different industries. We can't be industry specific.
Yeah.
So we are always looking for new areas to get into, new businesses, new applications, new pieces of equipment. We just have to keep growing and keep moving forward.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit about technology and how things have changed so much. How has that affected the industry and your company?
Well, I think, like, from our perspective, it's helped a lot. And we're starting to see, I think one of the big growth industries that we're seeing out there is AI, artificial intelligence, the ability to be able to produce things without having human beings involved. And that's driven by a number of factors. And there's a lot of good things about that. There's a lot of bad things about that, because people still have to work. They still have to generate revenues.
Yeah.
But certain factors affect that. And that's an interesting industry, like our CNC machine. Before with that, even before we got the plasma machine, guy would have to go out there with a torch and cut things out and then clean it all up. So there's a lot more hours that get into that. But now with this new equipment, you can go out there and you can hammer stuff out, and it's precise, and you don't need as many people to be able to do it. So you're able to provide a better quality product, a better looking product. You're able to do a lot more different things. You're more versatile, and you can reduce your costs, right?
Right.
Yeah. And once you get your capital equipment costs under control, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Moving forward, what's I guess, like, a goal, or where do you see the company going, or where do you want it to go?
Well, that's a great question, because we had a goal, but the goal has changed because the way that politics change, it affects the direction that we're going to go as a business, right? You end up with different legislation. You start to become more handcuffed in things that you want to do. You want to hire more people, but you get penalized for hiring more people.
Yeah.
Employees, which are considered an asset, are now, businesses look at them as more of a liability because of just legislation and different things that are being put in place. And from my perspective, I want to grow this business. I want to employ Canadians, and I want to move forward and make make IMT a thriving part of Canada's economy. It's a big goal, but it's a goal, and it's nice to be able to move to it. I mean, what we'd like to see in the next 3 to 5 years is continue our growth, move out to start expanding into different markets, like down into South America and different places like that. Open up and build or acquire a larger building that we have, and bring in more technology equipment to be able to open up our offerings to industry.
One of the things that when I was listening to that conversation between you two, that when the industries, like let's say the forest industry struggles, and then you're providing to that industry, it forces you. There's growth when you have a base, and then you tack on new markets.
Yeah.
Which is one. I mean, that's a dream solution. That's a dream situation for any company. It makes it difficult when, like, you're seeing what's happening with the forestry industry, and there's lots of reasons for it. I mean, I think the stumpage fee on the forest industry, they doubled it.
Yeah.
Well, now it's not worth doing it anymore for a lot of these companies that are working off small margins. So what it does to, like, for a company like yours, this is a question and a statement at the same time. It would seem to me that it would sort of, while you're looking for new markets, now you're forced to switch markets as opposed to serve one and then tack on another, which is going to affect your employment, how many you're going to hire, sales teams, marketing teams, then your actual people in the facility. Is that sort of, do you actually see that?
Definitely, and it's the doubling of stumpage fees, the pine beetle kill. It's like the perfect storm for in British Columbia. You look at Alberta, their forest. They're still moving forward. They're operating. And
Alberta over BC, figure that one out.
Yeah, in the forest industry.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, like, you look at that, and when that industry goes down, it's not just that industry, and that's what people need to start to understand.
It affects all industries.
It does. It affects the gas attendants, the hotel rooms where vendors come in, the vendors that come in and support these sawmills and these processors, and from what I've seen in the last 25, 30 years of going around and I remember calling when we had the beehive burners, right? And the beehive burners worked well if they're fed properly, but they weren't. And then you end up with the blue haze. And so we've come along and we've cleaned that up.
That's the smelling Kamloops that you're talking about?
No, that's the pulp mill.
That's the pulp mill.
So
old smelling Kamloops.
Yeah.
Wonderful city. Don't.
Yeah.
Oh, now I'm going to get black.
Yeah, she will. You will get feedback on that. But you see how technology has changed it, and there has to be a happy medium between the environment and industry, because we can't just shut down everything, because how are we going to survive? We all need to make money. We all need to pay our taxes. We all need to eat. We need to be able to heat our homes. And we have to kind of come up with a moderate way of doing that, instead of just shutting things down and pushing things out there. Because when you do that, what are you doing? You're killing your own economy, but somebody else is going to pick up the slack.
Yeah.
And
well, that's the thing. It's still the demand. If the demand is still there,
yeah. And that goes with every industry, right?
Yeah.
You start taking the stuff away, and that's the thing that I think that people really need to start to understand. Like, a lot of people say, "Yay, the sawmill's gone, right? No more pollution." But if you live in that community, it's devastating.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's really sad, but it is what it is, and there's really not much we can do about it.
The thing that I really do wish there would be more understanding of, and if people understood it, it would change the perception. Doing a couple LNG shows really opened my eyes to it. Is when you have a country like Canada that are having trouble exporting their products, what you end up with is it is going to come from somewhere. And if you make it really difficult, like say you green light a project, but you make it so difficult that investors aren't coming in and that sort of thing, so you make it very difficult, they are going to get the product from somewhere. So a country like China, who I mean, they might, in the media, you might hear one thing, but their leaders are going to be looking at, okay, we can't just keep pumping this pollution out. We've got to start to shift over as well. And they are. Now, with companies like the LNG industry, if they're not exporting, China is not going to make those shifts.
Yeah.
If we're exporting, they'll buy the product. Canada, on a global scale for pollution, is almost nil. It almost doesn't exist in comparison to. We need to export if we seriously want these countries. If we're going to look at these countries and say, you need to stop polluting, you need to give them the products that allow them to do it. China doesn't have this abundance of LNG. They're going to have to get it, and they're going to have to get it, and they should be getting it from countries that are doing it right.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a very simple concept, and it amazes me. But all you need is one bad media story about LNG industry, and out come the signs, essentially.
And that's like the whole pipeline thing. When you get into that, like to me, it's like, why wouldn't you want to put in a pipeline? I mean, instead of moving product via rail or truck, where your exposure is way more in a pipeline. There are pipelines. Like if you look at the map of pipelines in North America, you would just be staggered. Like how many are actually there? Yet we never hear about any issues. And if we do, they're capped off right away using technology, right? But going back to, with China, like we depend a lot on government to try and control that. Us as consumers, we have a lot of say in that. For example, stop going to Walmart. Don't buy the Chinese product, right? If you want to stop polluters, guess what? You cut off. You don't. Now there's no demand. They're not going to build the products anymore, and there's no pollution, right? And then you just say, hey, you want us to buy your stuff, you have to be able to look after this. And you need to be able to be environmentally responsible. You become environmentally responsible, we'll start buying your stuff again. Yeah. But we don't do that because it's all about money. We don't have the money anymore to go buy North American or Canadian made products or wherever it comes from. And it's a kind of a catch-22, right?
Yeah. And if you deliver, and if you're U.S. or Canadian, I mean, trade is, from my perspective, trade is so important between countries. Yeah. That's, like Jack Welch said, like if you want peace in the world, have trade. That forces people to be at peace because they want to keep working with each other. But when you take away your own country's ability to at least compete. Yeah. I don't think most people are looking for a handout in business. They just want to be able to compete. Yeah. Just let me be on the floor but if you make it so that you hire two new employees, and that becomes, like you said, it becomes a liability. Well, of course you're not going to. You can't do it. You can't scale, and then your capital costs, and you're updating your equipment, and all that sort of thing, and then your property tax is going up, and then your gas prices are going up. All of a sudden, that new employee in that new facility, you can't. I mean, these companies are operating off a company that runs on 5% profit is a really good company. There's not many of them out there.
And how are you supposed to grow your company?
How are you supposed to grow? Yeah.
And it's interesting.
More debt. Yeah. That's how companies
Well,
do it.
It's more debt, and actually, it's really interesting because once you start running a business and seeing what it is and trying to figure out how this whole system works that we have, we get taxed. At the end of the year, we end up having to pay a bunch of tax, and I look at that and I go, I could use that money. I could buy another piece of equipment. I could hire some more people. But what happens is we take that money and then we give it to the government, and then they're just like, oh, well, here, you can have it back as a tax incentive or as some kind of program, an export program or whatever. Is that really necessary? If you give it to a business and let the business keep it, then they can do that within their own organization. Yeah. So, you have to kind of leverage the whole thing. So if you're looking at expanding your business, take a look and see what kind of programs are available, especially a country like Canada where you get taxed so heavily. If you look hard enough, you'll most probably find some avenue to be able to get some kind of funding or grants or something to be able to, if you have a good plan, be able to move forward.
Yeah. And I think, there are a lot, and as we've learned all these programs and things. Sometimes though, it's kind of like what you touched on though. They're taking it as a tax and then they put it back in, whereas they could almost just get out of the way. And let people just do it. And the problem is when you're competing against, like right to our neighbors to the south. Yeah. And again, people are competitive. It's part of the fun of being a business is competing. But when you have a state in the U.S. that goes, yeah, well, we don't do a sales tax, and we're going to do this, we're going to do a tax credit, and it skyrockets their manufacturing and all that. Never mind all the other countries that are competing.
Yeah.
You can't compete against that. When all of a sudden you're taking, I think the average Canadian, I might be wrong. I think the average Canadian pays about 44% of their income in tax by the time they're done paying all their taxes, everything from fuel to sales to income to.
I actually think it's higher than that, but
Yeah.
It
yeah,
probably
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Well, that's the average.
Yeah.
So that's even Canadians that are making $26,000 a year.
Yeah.
When it all averages out, and it might be 60%. I don't know,
Yeah.
but that if people don't know because they're paying that when they buy fuel, they don't realize how much is getting
Yeah.
taken. But if someone handed you 60,000 a year and said, okay, now we're going to take 30. Now live on that. People go, I can't live on that.
Well, that's what's happening now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
it's just a slow bleed. People don't realize what's actually happening to
Yeah.
them because they're paying it off piece by piece by piece.
And then the government comes out and says, "Oh, here's $500." Oh
Oh,
yeah,
yay.
I'm voting for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is a personal thing that there was this first time home buyers thing
Mhm.
where they match what is it they match up to 5% of your income.
Yeah.
Or to 5% of your down payment. But they only, whereas the bank might look at 5 years of income, this program, it's based on your 4 years previous income.
Mm.
Well, most people aren't buying a house based on their 4 years previous.
Yeah.
They're based it because now they're, it's a couple, they're making some money.
Yeah.
They're
They got
not
a
eligible.
raise.
Nobody's eligible for this grant because, and then the people that are, let's say an accountant that's worked at that same job for 4 or 5 years. Well, he already bought a house,
Yeah.
so he's not going to use the program.
Yeah.
So it's a false. It
It-
really is a
and-
false program.
And there's a lot of those out there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks good. It looks good until you start looking at it.
Yeah.
And looking at the
Yeah.
details of
Well,
it.
it's always the fine print that gets you.
Yeah, that's true.
which is security too. If you've got an employee that goes and buys a house and does it, well, now they want to stay in that location, start a family there. If they're just renting and that, they have really no ties. If another place is a better option, they'll just move there. They'll
Yeah.
pack up and go.
Yeah.
Right? People move a lot, and part of it is because they don't have as much. They're not holding a property.
Yeah.
They don't have value invested. If people are living in Kelowna, they're not sitting there invested in the city itself by
Yeah.
holding property. So why wouldn't you move?
Yeah.
It really is nothing there. So
And you could move forward with that in business. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
taking a look, and I can't believe I'm even thinking about this, but I look at it and I think if the status quo in government, our federal government, stays in place, and I'm honestly thinking of moving outside of Canada, like moving it out, and like I look at that and kind of go, wow, it's
sad.
you've driven to that type of thought,
Yeah.
that thought process. And it's because they've changed, the governments keep changing the rules, right? Like I started the business, so someday, I can grow a business and employ people and I'll be able to retire one day. Well, when the government comes in and starts calling small business people, tax cheats and all this stuff and paints every business with this, and then starts threatening to tax you and take 50% of you sell your business, you take 50%. Now all of a sudden, like, how can I or my family move forward and retire from a plan that we've invested 20, 25 years? We don't have pension plans. Government employees, civil servants, they have that.
Yeah.
We don't that. And you guys are business people.
Yeah.
So and that's these more uneducated, just people just aren't educated on what exactly goes on when you run a business. And yeah, it's I don't know. It's a challenge, and you have to look at it as a challenge, and
Yeah.
you have to kind of adapt. You look at British Columbia. I mean, even moving to say like Alberta, your tax rates and everything that's available there versus being in British Columbia. But I love British Columbia. I love Canada, and it's this extreme swings that we're seeing, and it just scares the crap
Yeah.
out of
it's
me.
really unfortunate
Yeah.
too because Canada does have this advantage of there's there's laws within the country, so we have this unbelievably strong framework to work within. And then if you just took some of that pressure off, especially small businesses, because that's the other problem with those programs and grants and things like that. the person that's running a 3 to 5 person operation, if you got 200 employees, you can hire somebody to write all that and hire a lawyer, and that's not a
Yeah,
big deal.
yeah.
But if you're just a small operation, you can't afford something like that. You can't spend 2 weeks dealing with a $20,000 grant and then miss out on your $50,000 sale. It can't. It's not practical,
And,
right?
and again, talking about employees, I mean, what is a business? A business are the people, right? Like IMT, it's our team, it's our people. We got great people, and we're really fortunate to have the people and that we do. But when we bring in new people, and if you get the wrong person, this has recently happened to me. You talk about wasting time. Workers' comp has a division called discriminatory action. It's a discriminatory action. So if somebody is forced to go into a confined space and they don't want to, then workers' comp looks after that. But it also goes to other aspects. We had an incident where the employee was 100% fraudulent, like fraudulent. We had videotape of everything. They could have been nipped in the bud. But it's gone through. Now I have a legal aid. He has a legal aid, and it's going through. It's going through mediation, which we declined. Now it's in adjudication, and all of this cost is borne onto us. And I was told straight up, "You're guilty.
Yeah.
You're guilty. You have to prove yourself." And I'm going, but this guy's lying. Like, look at the video.
Yeah.
And you actually
Talk to the
By the
employees.
legal system, it's supposed to be the reverse, but not in
Not
this.
in this.
No.
No. And here's the scary part is if he was to find, and if they were to find in his favor, that's money that comes out of my business to cover him. So really, they're saying that the worst case scenario is you have to pay his salary till such time as he wants to go get another job. And I could expand on this. I could expand on
Wow.
this story just to show. But there's no recourse. So we're guilty. The employee comes in and lies through his teeth, right? He goes out there and there's no recourse on him. I went and wrote letters. Like I've got most probably close to 80 hours trying to defend IMT and this whole thing. 100% crap. And you go and you put that in there. There is no recourse. And I quoted the fraud. There's the fraud from workers' comp. I says, here it is. You guys should be charging this guy. You guys should be going after him.
Yeah.
Especially on the discriminatory side. And they say no, there is is nothing. So any employee could come along and file anything they want, go up, and now if and I'm lucky, I had to get signed affidavits, I had to get witnesses, and from all of this stuff, it's just cost time and money. But to be able to put something in place where there is no recourse when somebody is blatantly frauding the system.
Mm-hmm.
How is that fair?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that goes back to looking at an employee. An employee is an asset. Without that asset, you can't do it. But when you start putting policies in place that doesn't equalize it out, you're going to have people take advantage of that situation.
Absolutely.
So now you look at employees and you go, is that guy going to be a fraudulent? Is he going to defraud our company? So now you look at him as a liability, and like that is so wrong.
It is.
Yeah.
It's very sad when one person can ruin it for everybody else, and it affects everyone. It affects the employees. It affects the employer. It's full circle.
Yeah. And the costs, the costs involved. I don't know what this is going to cost for WorkSafe, which is not WorkSafe's money. It's us who are paying into WorkSafe.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, and then you look at, and then to go to the other side is if there's employees watching this, go, okay, well, what about people that, well, when the company mistreats you, it's very, this isn't the sexiest solution, but it's very simple. If you have a very competitive economy, the good employees leave bad companies.
That's a great point.
They just leave and they go get a job. When like my brother-in-law, when he's welding, you can't treat people badly.
No,
because they don't file with work comp. They go get their $150,000 job somewhere else.
Yeah.
They just leave.
Yeah.
And that, if you want to keep employers honest, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
And if you want to provide some stability, allow it so that employees are keeping enough money in their pocket after taxes that they can actually invest in
Yeah.
the communities
Yeah.
that they're living in.
Yeah.
It's not hard stuff. It's been tried so many times, it's been successful, but you get a small group of people that go, well, we need money for this, and then we need money for this, and then it starts. I could probably think of 100 reasons right now that I could take money from the government.
Yeah.
But once you start going down that path,
Yeah.
it's hard to come back from, because then you got to start choosing. It's like when they say, when you have a minority of people, how do you categorize a minority of people? Because everybody falls into these different categories. There's 1,000 categories. You need to give people opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's somewhere along the lines, we just sort of missed that in Canada. And I think, though, there's a little bit of resurgence of it, though, where people are going, you know what, I think I can do this my own. I am starting to even see it sort of even in my own circles. There's this bit of a shift in attitude where people go, you know what, the government's not really taking care of me.
Yeah.
No.
And they're not going to. So
Well, it's, and I just want to back up. Like, I totally am all for WorkSafe and the discriminatory action, because there are employers
Of
that
course,
have
yeah.
taken advantage
Oh,
of
sure.
but it just you need to have and be able to deter people from taking advantage of the situation. And there will be people. So there's always those extremes again, right? There's the people, the employees that are out there to defraud, the system, right? And then there's the employees who will take advantage of the employer. And both of those are bad.
Yeah.
And we need to come up with a solution. And that's part of the solution, but you need to put these checks and balances in place so you don't have it one way. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the pendulum is swinging and it's going one way. It's got to come back now. And that's kind of where we need to be, is come back a little bit. And I think that we've all grown up. We don't have coal mines, and we don't have 6-year-old kids working in coal mines anymore. And thank God for that.
and
right?
nobody wants
Yeah.
that.
No.
I don't know one person out
I
there
know.
that wants
I
that.
know.
Yeah.
I know.
There's
But
somebody, some wacko out
Yeah.
there. So, no, I remember the good old days.
yeah, I can beat the gerbil. Yeah.
We covered a lot. I'm glad you come in for like many of our guests, we'd never met. It was I saw your company and I reached out, and I'm glad you came on the show.
Oh, I
'cause
appreciate coming on and meeting you guys. I think it's what you guys have going on here it's awesome. It's really it's exciting.
Well, I'm sure we'll be talking again, but thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll do our sign off here.
Yep.
You're gonna give
Yeah.
the specials. That's
Yes.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just don't
So
forget
Rainy.
we have our Crownsman specials that we've just rolled out not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, I believe. And so far we've had Savinar Equipment, DRA Global come on, do their own specials, promote their products, services, projects. If you are looking to do the same, contact us, info@crownsman.com. Visit our website. There's more information on there, crownsman.com. What else?
You could be a sponsor. You could be a
Yes.
potential guest on the show.
Of course.
You could tell us how we can make the show better and all the things we're doing wrong.
Absolutely. No, all
Like
those
my
things.
intros, my goodness, today. Oh,
Sometimes it happens.
I don't know what it is.
Some days. Definitely, just if you have anything, any comments, anything, just want to reach out, please do. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can see all our episodes of the Crownsman podcast and our Crownsman specials. Also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, all at Crownsman P. You can listen to the podcast if you don't have time to watch it on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Castbox, Pocket Casts. I think that's it.
And 100 other more. There's so many platforms.
Probably.
And then, of course, the Crowns of Podcast group. I put a bug in Rory's ear that we should do giveaways, and then I manipulated him, and I said about silver coins and stuff like that. And he loves like gold coin. He's really into them.
Ooh.
So join the group. We might be doing some giveaways because I'm
That'll be
pretty
fun.
sure he's not going to be able to help himself now. So
Yay.
thanks for watching, everybody. We will see you on the next episode. Please subscribe. We've got lots of great episodes coming up. And thanks again for Dave for coming in to join us. We will see you on the next one.